Uh, but the beauty about divine transactions is they are not dependent on what human possibilities. Are you with me? So we're going to preach the same message. Is that all right, Brother Cameron? We're going to preach the same message. Now, we have been for some time examining a theme framed by Romans chapter 1 and verse 16. What does Romans 1:16 say? Oh, every Adventist here know that passage. No, you know it from the back of your eye. If you turn your Bible leaf, I'm going to have a problem. What does it say? I am not ashamed, what? Of the gospel of Christ. Why? For it is the power of God unto salvation. I am not ashamed. Paul wrote this to the believers in Rome. And I believe that this is a message that is extremely relevant to where we are at this moment in time. And we have taken different elements of that passage and we have examined it. I would have wanted to spend some more time with some of the content breakout that we've done, but there is a necessity to move this process forward because there is an urgency to the moment in which we are living. And I believe it is necessary that we understand where we are in time. Now, when Paul wrote to the Romans that he's not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, he was literally putting forward his statement of intent. He was saying, if you want to understand how I view my life in the context of living in this vast Roman Empire, preaching about a Jesus who died, and I believe rose again, ascended, and is living on high, I, Paul, am telling you, I am not ashamed of the gospel. The gospel may seem to have emerged from the Roman backwater of the Judean settlements out there in the hills of what we today call Palestine. It seemed to have originated there. But I must tell you this morning that the gospel did not originate from Palestine. Oh, you're quiet on me. Because you see, the author of the gospel is the eternal God who stepped out of nowhere, stood on nothing, and declared everything. There is a problem in our understanding of the Bible today. There is a problem in our understanding of the gospel today. Because many of us seem to think that the Old Testament and the New Testament are two different documents about salvation. That they have two different sources and they have two different purposes. But let me tell you this morning that if Abraham were alive today, he'd be a Christian. You see, there are those who are saying, you know, Abraham is the father of the Jews. But I want you to understand that when Abraham stood on Mount Moriah, when he was about to offer his son, Abraham was living in obedience to Christ. Are you with me? And when he placed his son on that altar, symbolically, he was conducting himself in the same way God the Father would give his son for the salvation of the world. The Bible says of Abraham that he is the father of the faithful. And the only people who will make it to heaven at the end of time are those who in their days on this earth have been faithful. Whether you have lived before the birth of Christ or you have lived after the birth of Christ, only the faithful will make it. You are not saved in the Old Testament on a different basis than you are saved in the New Testament. Because in the Old Testament it was still true that without the shedding of blood there is no remission for sin. And in the New Testament, it is still true that without the shedding of blood, there is no remission for sin. You see, they killed a lamb anticipating the death of Jesus. We look back to the cross and we affirm the fact that Jesus died. Are you with me? So the Old Testament was pointing towards Jesus, and we living this end of the New Testament era look back towards what Christ has done for us. Are you with me? The center of the Bible is Jesus. The fulcrum of the Bible is Jesus. The substance of the Bible is Jesus. The call of the Bible is Jesus. And the echo that comes down the cobblestones of history is follow me. Follow me. If we follow him, we shall be saved. Enoch followed him, and he was translated. Are you with me? Moses followed him, and he was resurrected and translated. And if you and I follow him, even if we die, we shall live again. Are you with me? Yes. Jesus is the center of Scripture. So when Paul declared, I am not ashamed, he was saying, I own all these details proudly. I put it out there that I am about Christ. That's what my life is about. And so he would say it a little differently, Elder Matthew. He would say, for me to live is Christ. I've got to say to us as Seventh-day Adventists this morning that we are coming to a point in the history of the world when our profession to believe in Christ is going to be tested. In Hebrews 11, we have the listing of those who were tested, and they lived up to their responsibilities. Some were sawn asunder. Some had their heads chopped off. Some were burnt in the fire. There are those who through history have gone through various tortures. But you know, in the book of Revelation it said, the souls under the altar were crying out, how long? And the response was, you've got to wait until those of your brethren who are yet to die in the defense of their faith have given their lives in defense of truth. Are you with me? And I believe we are living at a time when not long from now, individuals are going to be called upon in the defense of truth to sacrifice life itself. And so when I talk to you on this series, Not Ashamed, I want you to understand that this is no sideways gospel. This is the issue of the moment. Are you with me? Because sometimes we engage in conversations with people who do not believe the things we believe, and we know what the truth is, and we hesitate to say it because we don't want to offend anybody. But let me tell you something this morning. If you cannot speak the truth to an audience of one, what is going to happen when you've got to stand before the great people of the earth? When the government calls you in for an examination of why it is you have not conformed to its edicts. If you are ashamed, Christ says, to own me before men, I'll be ashamed to own you before my Father. Now, I'm going to use the series not to relitigate the issues we have already discussed. But I want to show you that we are called to stand in the line of faith and sacrifice. I look through the Bible and I see profiles in courage. Are you with me? So I want to talk this morning. This series, Not Ashamed of the Gospel, is going to move into the space of profiles in courage, because I want to stir you up. That's when you get outside these doors, you should be ready to go tear the kingdom of Satan down with the sharp sword of the gospel. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm trusting the Lord this morning that your heart will burn within you. Not ashamed. We're going to go to the book of Daniel. Oh man, sometimes wonder if seconds still measure the same thing they did 10 years ago. Daniel chapter 3, verses 8 through 14. We're going to start there. Daniel 3, verses 8 through 14. What does the Bible say? If you see me in a hurry, I've got somewhere going. Is that all right? When I say going, I mean inside the book. Daniel chapter 3, verses 8 through 14. Wherefore at that time, you know the background of the story, so I'm not going to create it for you. Wherefore at that time, certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. They spake and said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. Verse 10. Thou, O king, hast made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, the flute, the harp, the sackbut, the psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoso falleth not down and worshipeth, that he should be cast in the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And then they reported, they said, this is the decree you have made, king. Isn't this what you said? Well, we have an update for you. Here is what we've got to tell you. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of Babylon. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. And then comes the real issue. What did they say? They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar in his rage and fury commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I, Nebuchadnezzar, have set up? Friends, I believe that there were hundreds, yea, thousands, even tens of thousands of Jewish captives that were present on the plains of Dura when Nebuchadnezzar erected his image, 99 feet tall. There were tens of thousands of people from Jerusalem. Can I say it differently? There were tens of thousands of Seventh-day Adventists out there. But only 3 refused to bow. What does that tell me? There were only 3 that were not ashamed of the gospel. Are you with me? I don't know if you understand the weight of that moment. All the dignitaries of the world were assembled. Nebuchadnezzar had called for an international meeting of all the nations of the earth on the plains of Dura. I believe the Secret Service was present. Are you with me? The armed elite guards of the various governmental retinues were present. It was clear to those young men that to disobey the king in the context of this royal gathering was to endanger their heads. And just to underline the fact, Nebuchadnezzar had already set the fire in which to throw the disobedient. But these boys had made up their mind This is why I say there's no argument. There is no change of focus between the Old and the New Testament. You see, Peter would declare it. But if you ask the Hebrew boys, they would have agreed. What did Peter say? We ought to obey who? God rather than men. If you ask the Hebrew boys, if you interviewed them, the reason they were standing and not kneeling is because they had come to the conclusion in their own hearts, it is what? Better to obey God rather than men, even if it costs my life. I prefer to die in obedience to God than live in disobedience. Because if I live in disobedience, I'm a candidate for hell. But if I die in obedience, heaven is my home. Are you with me? What does the Bible say? Be thou, give me the word, faithful unto death, and I'll give you a crown of life. I hear the apostle issue a challenge. He said, you have not resisted unto blood, striving against sin. These boys knew that to resist Nebuchadnezzar is to put their blood at risk. But they were more concerned about the honor of God than about the preservation of life. Are you with me this morning? And so they stood up. Now there are those who say that, boy, that was an uncalled for crisis. They provoked the king because they could have knelt and prayed in their heart to the Almighty, and God would have known what they were saying in their hearts. There are many of us who try to tone down our Christianity. You know, tone it down. Just tone it down. You don't have to be so. But let me say something to you. You and I are called to be light. What did Jesus say? Matthew chapter 5. What did he say? You are the light of the world. And then if you are the light, what are you to do? Let your light so shine. Now when it says let your light so shine, the word there, let, if we were to syntax the Greek, is in the permissive imperative. It is a command of permission. If I were to render it slightly different, no, don't say I edit the Bible. What was being communicated was, allow your light to shine. Allow it to shine. If you don't get in the way, the light will shine. Are you with me? Yes, hold out the light and let it shine. Don't be worried about the consequence of living for Jesus. If you live for Jesus, he will light the world. What did he say? I am the light that lighteth every man that cometh into the world. If you get out of the way, Jesus will shine. And that's what humility is. Me learning to get out of the way so Christ can shine through me. Put away my own agenda, my own concern for my survival and the list of things I want to accomplish in my life so that his agenda can become the rule for my life. Now let's move. I didn't spend a lot of time working on that, but I want to move on real quickly this morning because time is not my friend. There we were, Daniel chapter 3, and we've stopped in verse 14. I want to take you over to Revelation because I want to stitch these two things together. Revelation chapter 13, I want you to see that there is no break between the Old and the New Testament. The issues of the Old Testament are the issues of the New Testament. Are you with me? The things that you and I are going to be called to go through, there are others who have gone through them before us. Are you with me? And I want to use this series of messages to show you that the God who calls you to be faithful have taken care of the faithful in the past. Are you with me? And I am here to declare he will take care of you in the future. He'll take care of you today. He'll take care of you tomorrow. But you have to put your trust in the Lord. Amen? The reason, we read the Bible as if it is bedtime story. But these things are live rounds. So let's see if we can uncase some hot rounds from Daniel 3 to Revelation 13. Where are we? Revelation chapter 13. You're there? Let's take a dive. Come with me, and I want you to start with me in verse 12. And he exercises all the power of the beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the beast, whose deadly wound was healed, and he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. Verse 14, what's the result? And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should what? Make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause, that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now I'm going to tell you that at Revelation chapter 13, verses 15 through 17, we are symbolically at the same place as Daniel chapter 3. Are you with me? In Daniel 3, the king has his image upon the plains of Dura. In Revelation chapter 13, an image to the Roman hierarchy has been raised up for the world to adore. In Daniel 3, those who do not bow will be killed. In Revelation 13, those who do not worship will be killed. Are the issues the same? Yes. And the way to survive is to worship what God says don't. Are you with me this morning? And so I want to say to you that we are living at the time when the mark of the beast is gonna rear its ugly head in this land. The details are being put together right before our eyes. And I want to spend this series trying to see if I can wake up the church, because I think we're falling asleep. We've gotten a little bit too comfortable. So, here is what the Bible says in Psalm 23. You know, God is always seeking to assure his children. He never sends you to a battle that he doesn't equip you to fight. Are you with me? And if he tells you you won't have to fight, it's because he fought it already. Amen. Are you with me? Amen. One time he said, just bring the choir. Another time he says, march around the city and just play music. And after you play music, just shout like you're acknowledging what I've already done. Are you with me? God never sends you to the job alone. He says, I will be with you in trouble. I will deliver you. And the result is that when you see the deliverance, you're going to glorify me. Are you with me? Yes, it's all going to work out. I'm going to go into some terrible things, but I want to say to the people of God, I don't want you to stress over it. Are you with me? I don't want you to get gray over it, because it will all work out for the faithful. Psalm 23 verse 4, what does the Bible say? Yea, though I walk, what? Through the valley of the shadow of death, what will happen? I will fear no evil, though I walk through the valley. Let me tell you something. It is God who leads you into the valley. And he says, walking in the valley of the shadow, you're going to see deadly things. But you don't need to be afraid. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Now, I'm going to sharpen up the issue a little bit. Going to the pen of inspiration. I want you to read along with me. The Temperance Work. One of the most prominent and important of moral reforms is often combined with the Sunday movement. And the advocates of the latter, that is, the advocates of the Sunday movement, represent themselves as laboring to promote the highest interests of society. And those who refuse to unite with them are denounced as the enemies of temperance and reform. But, what does it say? The fact that a movement to establish error is connected with a work which is in itself good is not an argument in favor of the error. Can I elaborate? The pen of inspiration is saying here is, as Seventh-day Adventists, we are called to stand apart. You hear me? Now, I'm going to read some more, and it will get clear, but I want to make sure you don't miss it. What's going on here is, there are lots of initiatives that's going on in the world around us. And these initiatives sound like good things. But these good initiatives have hidden in them the agenda of the Prince of Darkness. Are you with me? They are the devil's tools to bring the world to the plane of Dura on their knees. Are you with me? And as Seventh-day Adventists, the warning is, love not the world. Stay away from union with the world. Because what you may assume may be something, it's not any big deal. When you actually figure out what it's about, you'll find out that you have been promoting what you should be opposing. Are you following what I'm saying? So, we are told we may disguise poison by mingling it with some wholesome food, but we do not change its nature. On the contrary, it is rendered more dangerous, and it is more likely to be taken unawares. It is one of Satan's devices to combine with falsehood just enough truth to give it plausibility. So here's what we say. Well, it's not all bad. But that it is not all bad is not an argument in its favor. Are you with me? The leaders of the Sunday movement may advocate, this is the counsel we have been given, the leaders of the Sunday movement may advocate reforms which the people need, principles which are in harmony with the Bible. Yet, while there is with these a requirement which is contrary to God's law, his servants cannot unite with them. Is that clear? Nothing can justify them in setting aside the commandments of God for the perceptions of men. Nothing. No matter what the issue is. Now suppose I were to tell you, I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but suppose I was to tell you that on Earth Day, just earlier this month, there are Adventist churches that shut down their service on the Sabbath and sent their congregation out to go clean the beaches and go clean the overgrowth areas around their communities because we are taking care of the environment. Do you understand what is happening? It is a good thing to take the garbage off the beach. Did you hear me? It is a good thing to clean up your community. Nothing wrong with it. But here's what happened. God says, remember the Sabbath day. Do what with it? Keep it. It's not yours. Are you understanding what I'm saying to you? 6 days you shall. So there are good ideas that are out there. But the devil has a way of using what is on its surface good to trap you. It's like a fisherman. When a fisherman goes to catch fish, what does he do? You fish? You've never fished? You put the bait, you put the hook up inside an attractive bait for the kind of fish you're trying to catch, right? Yes. And when you throw the line out there, the fish comes swimming by and he looks at it and he says, man, oh, I'm so hungry. This is a piece of food. It's a piece of, looks it over. Yeah, this is nice. But inside that bait is it. And too many of us are at risk of ending up on the devil's line. Are you understanding what I'm saying to you? Because we rationalize away our responsibility before God. It's not a bad idea. There's something floating around, so many good initiatives. One of them was putting together movements in the churches to help women who are being trafficked. It's a good initiative, right? But why, as an Adventist, if you're going to try to help women who are being trafficked, why do you have to work through the priests to do it? Are you understanding what I'm saying to you? Go get it done and leave the priests out of it. Does that make sense? Courage. There's a definition that the world offers for courage. They call it mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. Now, there are some individuals who say that they're brave. I am brave because I'm not afraid of anything. That man is a fool. He ain't brave. To be not afraid is not what bravery is. Bravery is having an appropriate sense of danger and yet standing up in spite of it. That is bravery. If you're not afraid, you're not brave. Are you following what I'm saying? But if you stand up in spite of your fear, that's bravery. when you know you are at risk and you decide to stand up in the face of that risk. But to not know that you're at risk is not to be brave. That is to be asleep. That is to be a meal for a lion lying on your cot. Are you with me? Oh, my friends, let me say something to you this morning. The Hebrew boys never ended up in the fire because they didn't know that they would end up there if they resist. They ended up there because they made up their mind, we will not bow. No matter what the consequences. Courage, real courage, is going to be called for. And let me tell you, friend, the only way that we're going to find the power of this courage is if we learn to lean on Jesus. Are you with me? Daniel chapter 3, we read it. Wherefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews, spake to the king concerning them. I'm not even going to repeat these. I'm just going to go forward. I wanted to break these down a little bit more, but I'm just going to run through, run right by these things. Now, I took you through Daniel chapter 3 and Revelation chapter 13, but I want to remind you of what we said last week. Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 15. What did God say? They shall be ashamed and also confounded. All of them, they shall go to confusion together, that are makers of idols. Why? But Israel shall be saved in the Lord with an everlasting salvation. Ye shall not be ashamed. What did God promise Israel? You shall not be ashamed. Why will Israel not be ashamed? Because they trust in the Lord. He went on to say, for thus saith the Lord, verse 18 of Isaiah 45, for thus saith the Lord that created the heavens, God himself that formed the earth. What did he say? He hath established it. He created it not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. And he says, I am the Lord, and there is none else. If you know you serve the only God there is, you don't need to be afraid. Are you with me? Now, the world is working on an agenda called climate change. I've got to run past some of these things I want to talk to you about so I can take you down into some of these things that are going on right around us that I want to call your attention to. The world is working on an agenda called climate change. Anybody know, ever heard of climate change? Okay. Now let me say to you as believers that the oldest document on climate change is the Bible. And the document with the last authority on climate change is the Bible. Are you understanding what I'm saying to you? So I want to say to you that while I do not for one moment subscribe to the ideas you hear floating around you, I want you to understand that climate change is not something that took God by surprise. In fact, climate change is under divine control. Now somebody's going to ask me, Pastor, you say the oldest document on climate change is the Bible. How do you work that out? Well, the first incidence of climate change is found where? Genesis where? Genesis chapter 3. When man sinned, what happened? And then, if we want to talk about, move from just a little climate change to catastrophic climate change, where do we find the first evidence of catastrophic climate change? We get to Noah's flood when the world rains for the first time. Are you understanding me? Noah preached this message and could not be believed because he was saying things people had never seen happen. He was saying, this is what's going to happen. And they couldn't believe it. But let me ask you something. Did it rain because of man's activity or because of divine judgment? Which one? It was action from heaven punishing sin on the earth. Are you understanding me? Now, let me tell you, this is not bedtime story. Because what happened in the beginning is about to happen at the end. Then it was liquid. This time it's going to be fire. Are you understanding what I'm saying to you? Oh, let me tell you something, friend. We are sailing into rough seas. But I want you to take the picture from Noah and understand that when God decided to unleash catastrophic climate change, he first secured the faithful. Come on, somebody. What did he do with the faithful? He placed the faithful in a little boat. Are you with me? And the faithful were bobbing up and down on the waves, but they were secure. Now, remember, Noah preached for 120 years, and then what happened? God says, Noah, time to go in the ark. And when Noah went in the ark, what did God do? Now, when God closed the door, I'm talking to Adventists now, what is that a symbol of? When God closed the door, come on, Brother Matthew. It's a probation close. Yes, probation close. But I want to, this is a loaded symbol. There is more than just the close of probation there. What else? Come on. There's more than just the close of probation. Talk to me. What happened? What's there? I'm in Revelation 13. Judgment is coming, but the judgment hasn't yet started. The judgment is going to come 7 days later. Come on now, talk to me. What's going on? What else is in the symbol? The sealing of God. Close the door. He sealed them in. Are you with me? And once they are sealed, they are saved. You're not with me. Did you get it? They are on the water, but they are sealed. And let me say to the people of God, what we need to worry about is not the trouble that is coming, it's the state of our souls. Are you with me? We're going to come back to that in just a moment, but I just want you to see it. I want you to see it, that in the what is up there is down here. Let me show you again. How we read our Bibles, and we don't read them in the framework of where we are in time. God's people, where were they? They were down in Egypt. Egypt is symbolically what? Babylon. What happened? So Egypt was running the world then. But when God got ready to deliver his people, he carried out some amount of catastrophic climate change. What we call them? 10 plagues. And what happened? When the plagues were about to fall, what did God do with his people? Where were God's people to be found? They were in, come on church, talk to me, they were in Goshen. And over there in Goshen, God gave them divine security. Are you with me? The plagues fell on Egypt, but the people in Goshen were preserved. I am here to say to the people of God this morning, Jesus said to tell you, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe in me. What was he saying? He said, I got this. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Safe in the arms of Jesus. Safe on his gentle breast. There by his love overshadowed sweetly. My soul doth rest. You want to see Jesus in the bottom of the boat. The devil is stirring up the ocean. But Jesus is fast asleep. He ain't worried about what the devil is doing. Because he knows his Father got this. Are you understanding what I'm saying to you? And I'm saying to the church of the living God this morning, we need to pay attention to where we are. Understand the danger. But but we can rest in the arms of Jesus because he's got this. All right. So, when we look at what was going on in Goshen, we had the plagues falling. But when it came to the bottom and everything was about to go down, what did God say? Before the death angel passed through, what did God say? Put some blood upon your doorposts, and I'm going to do an inspection. And when I see the blood applied, what's going to happen? I will pass over you. Friend, the blood of Jesus is all the security that you and I need. Are you with me? If I'm under the blood, I can survive the flood. No. I'm going to move a little bit forward. Oh boy, I want to switch this clock with that one. That one says I have 2 more minutes than this one says, 3 more than this one says. Now at Andrews, they had a forum at a time when the world is marching a steady path to the plains of Dura. This is how the people of God are preparing. Rise Up Against Abuse rally held at Andrews University. Now, I think that resisting abuse is a good thing. Condemning abuse is a good thing. However, it is extremely important that as the people of God, we don't let the world set our agenda. Is that all right? So I was wondering, what was this thing really about? And as I looked, this is what was said. The Rise Up Against Abuse rally held at Andrews University, the first ever event on the Adventist University campus, launched a new initiative designed to help people use awareness education, intervention, and prevention to take decisive actions against all forms of abuse. And you would think that as Adventists we'd be opposed to all forms of abuse, because if there are any people who understand that family is about love, it should be the people who are in love with Jesus. Are you with me? Perfect love casts out all fear. You don't have any room for abuse in a heart that is filled with the love of God. But what do you see up there? The rally officially ended with a workshop titled Preventing LGBT plus Abuse. Hang on a moment. Is that what we are called to rise up for? In defense of LGBT? My friends, we need to refocus on what our mission is, what our purpose is, what are we here for? Because believe me, the world is not distracted, even if we are. Now, I'm moving on from that real quickly because my time isn't there. Something is going on. Everybody is talking about Sabbath. Have you heard it? Yes. Everywhere you go, people are talking about Sabbath. But when they talk about Sabbath, they aren't talking about Exodus 28-11. Earth Sabbath, a Sabbath for the earth. Earth Sabbath helps activists tend to the spiritual side of environmentalism. When I said to you that the environmental movement, the climate change movement, all of this is a spiritual agenda that works to the establishment of the rulership of the Prince of Darkness, there are individuals who think, making it up. But the Reverend Steve Halstead speaking of this event, lit a candle, led a breathing meditation on the four elements, earth, fire, water, and air, and passed around a conch shell, inviting participants to listen for a message inside. One woman said the sound of a rushing ocean encouraged her to keep going on. Another lowered the shell from her ear and said she'd heard, "We are not there yet." I wonder who was on their way. The 8 men and women sitting in a semicircle at Raleigh's Community United Church of Christ Fellowship Hall paused for a 90-minute earth Sabbath. 90-minute earth Sabbath. So you can have a 90-minute Sabbath. I've heard people in the media talking about a Sabbath from technology. Switching off all your devices, and that's a Sabbath. Everybody is having a Sabbath. Everybody is discovering Sabbath. So I decided to see if I were to put this expression, earth Sabbath, into Google, what headlines would I get? Keeping the Sabbath to keep the earth. A Sabbath for the earth and the poor, the challenge of Pope Francis. A Sabbath for the earth and the poor, justice and peace conference. Give the earth a Sabbath day. A Sabbath for the earth and the poor. Sabbath as a radical act. National Catholic Reporter. Even the Catholic, the Pope is preaching Sabbath more than Adventists. Are you understanding what's going on? This is the problem. The problem is, at a time when climate change, everybody's talking about climate change, and then they come up with Earth Day and, Sabbath for the earth. And you would think that Adventists would be on the cutting edge to teach the world about the true Sabbath. In fact, as I reflected on this, I came to the conclusion that the reason the earth is going to be destroyed is because it refused to keep the Sabbath. And this is not speculation. I wish I had time to develop this theme, but there is time to come because we're opening up this series. Why was Jerusalem destroyed? Talk to me, church. Why was Jerusalem destroyed? When the Babylonians came and destroyed Jerusalem, why did God allow it? Because they refused to keep the Sabbath. And so how long did God send them to Babylon? 70 years. And what did he say? He says, while you're over there, the land will do what? Keep Sabbath. Are you with me? And God is going to empty this earth of men. And then he's going to let the earth rest for how long? Man still has not learned. And so they're saying, oh, everybody now has a big idea. The Pope has a big, beautiful new idea. What is his idea? If we could get a Sabbath for the earth, we could stop climate change. Think about it. If men had continued to keep the Sabbath from God gave it to them, there would be no climate change. Are you understanding what I'm saying to you? You follow it? But now everybody wants to create a Sabbath. But the Sabbath they want to create is what? Sunday. And what's amazing is Adventists are helping them with it. So I want to close with this one. I'm going to stop right here. I can't go any further. I wish I could. There's a theme I wanted to come back to. Ontario Conference, inaugural Earth Day Summit, inspires thousands to acknowledge God as Creator. Now, this attracted my attention for several reasons. It says, according to a UN report released on May 6, 1 million planet and animal species are now at risk of extinction. This is from the Seventh-day Adventist Church world page. Moreover, 4 decades after the first Earth Day in 1970, the global population has doubled. What are they saying? They're saying, boy, this is a bad thing. Man, are not listening to the scientists, because if we were, we'd have slowed down the population. I'll explore that in another time. We are emitting 2.4 times more CO2, causing sea levels to rise, and more than 170 animal species have been declared extinct. Only a transformative change in how we engage with nature will stall these trends. So is the church on board to stop climate change? Is it? Yes. So this guy, I put him up there because he's somebody I know very well. You know who that is? It's a pastor from Jamaica. Pastor Mansfield Edwards. Went to Canada as a good preacher of the everlasting gospel. He's now the president of the Ontario Conference. It was his initiative to bring Earth Day to Canada. Are you with me? In the Adventist church, it's his initiative. And here's what he said. It's all about being relevant in our society. I'm closing. Considering the input of biblically sound stewardship strategies to climate change, said Ontario Conference President Mansfield Edwards, as quoted from an Adventist Review article on the event. I am convinced Seventh-day Adventists should be among the leading promoters of Earth Day as stewards of God's creation. And then there was a retired professor from the Northern Caribbean University. I'm going to call her name because I know her. Patricia Hartmott. She responded by saying, I am proud of what the Ontario Conference has done to put on a summit of this magnitude. It's right in keeping with our times. As other people are talking about saving our planet and having a special day to help with that, I think the Lord is leading. What did we read at the beginning? Men may come up with good ideas, but we are not to join with them. Are you understanding me? What's going on here? What is the day that God has given for the preservation of the earth? He says, if you regard this day, you will have princes going in and out of the gates of Jerusalem. I will preserve you and cause you to ride upon the high places of the earth and feed you with the heritage of your father Jacob. But what happened? We turned away. Ancient Israel turned away. And what is happening to modern Israel? Friend, when everybody is talking about day for the earth, we should be preaching, God has given a day for the earth a long time ago. Are you with me? Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. What did Jesus say? Mark chapter 2, 27 and 28. Stand with me. What did he say? The Sabbath. Come on, somebody. What did he say? The Sabbath was what? Made for man. The Sabbath was made for the benefit of man. If man keeps the Sabbath, God preserves the earth we all live. Are you with me? But man has risen up in rebellion against God. And so the prophet says what? The earth groweth old like a garment. And try as you might, you cannot put your finger to stop it. Because God has said, this is going down. I don't want to preserve this. I don't want to preserve this. You know why, Brother Matthew? I read the back of the book. And in Revelation chapter 21, come on somebody, we're closing. What does it say? I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no more sea. Then I, John, saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he shall dwell with them, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. I'm looking forward to it. New heaven, new earth, no climate change. You know why? No sin, no rebellion. And from one Sabbath shall all flesh come to worship. No Sabbath, no life. Are you with me? It is time for the people of God to be profiles in courage.